right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of the Gloo'd In podcast. I know we kind of took a little bit of a hiatus there, but for good reason. Today, I have a really special guest with me. Um, he started off his career as a kind of an IT engineer, really more on the engineering side of the house for various consulting companies, for tech companies. Then later found out, he wanted to do this consulting himself, and then moved on to actually start his own consulting firm and do a little bit of freelance consulting here and there with different companies, managing his own products, things like that. And then, he was worked in the open source space, which, as you all know, in this podcast, we like to focus on that, particularly in the Kubernetes space. And then, funny enough, he has now landed over here and is my coworker and colleague and friend at Solo. He's a principal solutions engineer here over at Solo. So it is my pleasure to introduce the new co-host for the Gloo'd In podcast moving forward, Michael Levan. Michael, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate it, and thank you for inviting me to be a co-host as well. I know that's a big deal, so I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. When I saw, well, I should have mentioned this in the intro, but we can still talk about it, is you did your own podcasts and things like that before. You've written books, so you've been very much in kind of this media space, this type of new media that we see going on. So when you had joined, it kind of just came straight to my mind. I was like, I definitely want to have this guy come and help me out with the podcast if he's into it. But yeah, absolutely. So, first question I always have for the guest is, how did you get your start into the DevOps space, right? Because there's software engineering degrees in colleges and stuff, but there's not like a DevOps engineer degree. And we
Yeah.
know that, being a front-end engineer versus a DevOps engineer versus back-end, full stack, there's so many different ways to do this. So how did you get into DevOps? Why did that become your passion?
Yeah, first and foremost, I just want to apologize for my background here. 'Cause
Yeah.
I know we're doing video. I'm moving tomorrow, so that's why you see boxes and blank stuff and everything. So yeah, apologies for everybody watching. So the way I got into DevOps was, I would say originally, so like going back to the whole like DevOps isn't a job thing, right? But like that war has been lost. We don't have to talk about that. But a
Hmm.
little bit after that, what I noticed with DevOps, and you could also put like maybe platform engineering in this arena as well, maybe SRE in this arena, because it all depends on the organization. Um, but what I noticed was it was a healthy combination, at least then, it was a healthy combination of software engineering and infrastructure. And if anybody's ever read the SRE handbook by Google, one of the things that I really love about that book is the way that they describe an SRE is a software engineer thinking about infrastructure, right? Or like rather uh, deploying and managing your infrastructure with a software engineering mindset. And I really, really enjoyed that because to me, and even still now, like having the ability to bridge software engineering and infrastructure knowledge, I truly do believe that that's like a pinnacle of knowledge, right? Like if your goal in your career is to get as much knowledge as possible, be as good as you can possibly be, or the absolute best in your field, understanding both sides of the house is super important, and that's why I was really driven to like the DevOps and platform engineering space.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And I'll reiterate for the audience too. Michael's background is usually like he's got a bunch of monitors everywhere, a lot of bells and whistles. He is a techie and through. So he is absolutely right. He is moving. And I'm excited for the next episodes when you get to see his actual background in place because it's very cool. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, that makes a lot of sense as to why you wanted to get into DevOps. You know, I kind of see this progression in your career where you started off as a DevOps engineer, and then I see that you also became an author in Pluralsight. And Pluralsight, as we all know, it's like a platform to teach. It's a platform to build like workshops or lessons and things like that. So you already kind of had this idea of I like teaching this stuff. I like helping people learn this instead of just doing the work. I also want to teach people how to do this work. So how did that transition kind of come into play for you, where you're like, I've been doing this for a while, I enjoy it, but I also want to teach people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say it's two pieces to the puzzle. The first piece is I very much enjoy giving knowledge to people. Like even when I was self-employed,
Hmm.
the majority of the content that I was putting out, like weekly blogs, weekly videos, weekly podcasts, doing a bunch of live streams, like this was all free stuff. Like I never did any like gatekeeping for any of this stuff. The only content that I was actually getting paid for was like through vendors or through like I do a lot of live training. I still do live training now. So like teaching, engineers how to program and engineers about like different Kubernetes pieces and all that jazz. Or like if I was doing something with Pluralsight or I was doing like a live workshop, like I had a client reach out to me to, do like a 5-day live training or something like that. So all of my stuff has always been more or less free, right? Like aside from like some of the books, but even the books, like I probably have like 5 or 6 books out there, ebooks that are free. Like, maybe in the beginning I put like a $5 thing on them and then I was like, I'll take it off, right? Just download it for free. So I've always been really big about giving the audience good quality content. And the reason why that really stems from like, years ago, I would always find myself in, various engineering roles where for whatever reason, right, we could never implement something of the utmost quality. And that doesn't mean like it was anything wrong with the organization. It
Sure,
was,
sure.
or like even the knowledge, right? It
Mhm.
was really more just like, hey, like we have a deadline that we have to hit, and to be able to do this the right way, it's going to extend ourselves, a month or whatever, right? And organizations face that all the time. Like as engineers, we always want to do things 100% the right way.
Mhm.
Um, and that 100%, like that could, extend timelines for 6 months, right?
Mhm.
So with my content, I always wanted to try to condense the right way as much as possible into a blog post or a video. That way, when engineers went to go do it, and maybe management said, "Yeah, we don't have the time to do it this way and that way," engineers could hopefully go and say, "No, no, no, we actually do. Here's how."
Mhm.
So that's one piece of it. The second piece of it is more selfish on my part, but I've always been really, really interested in pushing myself to my limits and past my limits. It's just something in my head, right? Like even like my workouts, my diets, like how I live my life, like when I wake up in the morning, when I go to sleep, like how regimented I am. I've always just been really interested in pushing myself past my limits. And with my career, it's never it's the same exact thing, right? So like as I was an engineer, I'm like, okay, this is great, but like, what more can I do? Okay, I'll learn how to write because learning how to write a blog post, a book, a white paper, whatever it is, like that is a skill within itself. And then you have to understand and learn that skill and hone that skill, and then also give the content that people want, right? So you have to be,
Sure.
technically competent, and then you also have to be really good at writing. And then the same thing goes for, I speak at conferences, so like being a speaker, that's a skill within itself. The videos that I do, understanding how to capture an audience and make a video interesting, writing a book, right, like live training, like all that stuff are all different skills within themselves. And that's why you see a lot of people, like if they're content creators, they're doing just YouTube, or they're doing just training, or they're doing just blog posts and articles, right? But I just wanted to do it all because I wanted to push myself past my limits. And then also with content, like especially with written content,
Mhm.
I really enjoy that with a blog post or an article or a white paper, and especially a book, you can go really, really, really in depth
Yeah.
with it. And you may not be able to go as in depth in your job, right? Like your day-to-day job, because again, there's only so many hours in the day, stuff needs to get done, there are deadlines, etc. But with an article, especially if you're writing it for yourself, there's no timeline, right? So like you can go really, really, really in depth into the weeds of a particular technology or stack. Those are my two main reasons. Bringing it back, it's I wanted to help people,
Mhm.
and I wanted to push my limits personally.
Yeah, I love what you said about kind of like the skill of writing, right? As well as being able to be technically savvy, understand what you're talking about, and building that credibility with the people that you're trying to reach. But then also, people underrate the idea of storytelling, the ability to craft a story or craft a vision so that you set yourself apart from, the competition, in your sense, other blog posts, other people that have their own opinions on things. So, well, I thought that was a really great point. Now, going to that point one where you built up the technical knowledge to help people, right? As a freelance, and we're going to get into that your freelance days. Like I think you're there, you were doing that for about 5 years. But I'm very curious. When you're starting to build content or you're starting to kind of recommend, hey, this is the approach I would take to build my software stack or build my infrastructure stack. There are a million infrastructure tools out there, DevOps tools out there. How do you kind of still remain opinionated and saying, these are the tools that I use, but also open-minded and unbiased because there's so many tools in the open source community and proprietary tools that people might want to use that are very good. So how do you kind of narrow that down to saying, this is kind of my recommended approach while still being opinionated, but not being biased? Yeah.
Yeah. That's a hard one to answer.
Yeah,
And I
I'm
think that
sure.
it really depends on the person, right? And their mindset towards the technology stack. So like for me, I'll tell you how I do it,
Hmm.
but for everybody, I think it's going to be a little bit different, honestly. So for me, it's number one, I enjoy this stuff. Like I enjoy the tech, I enjoy the learning. Like I enjoy like looking at new open source projects and writing new software and like learning how it all works. So it's easy for me to be agnostic
Hmm. Hmm.
just because I like it, right? Like I always tell people, like regardless of where I'm working, right? Like I'm working at Solo now, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm not still agnostic, right? Like that doesn't mean that I can't look at other technologies and see the beauty in it. And
Yeah.
that's always been my thing. Like I've always been able to look at open source tools. I've always been able to look at enterprise-based tools and see the beauty in it and the reason why. Right now not everybody may share that sentiment, but I've always been able to look at it as like a, call a glass half full or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
So that's one side of it. And then the second side of it is it's got to be a little ego driven in a sense,
Okay.
right? Like when you're giving somebody a particular opinion on how something works, like it's got to be something that you feel at your core,
Hmm.
even if everybody else doesn't feel that way. And like an opinion is driven psychologically from a I'm right. You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
driven from a like a little bit of an ego standpoint. And that's not like a bad thing. I'm not saying like F everything else, right? Don't worry about that stuff. Just worry about this. No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is like when you look at a particular stack and you work with that stack and you understand it and you know why it works so well,
Hmm.
you got to take that energy with you as you're giving particular opinions and being like, no, 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 like this is the way to do it. Yeah, there's other stuff and yeah, it works this way or whatever, but like this is the way that to do it. This is the way that I see it done. And this is the way that I've seen it be successful. So I think that, you got to have openness and you got to have an open mind to learn new stuff, but you also have to know, like we all have that, call it your unconscious or your subconscious or whatever. We all have that thing inside of us where like we get a little spark about
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
and you kind of got to follow that. Like
Yeah.
you got to look at it and be like, no, like this is the way. Because otherwise it's like you said, there's so many different ways to do things. I
Hmm.
mean, I always say like you line up 10 engineers and ask them the same question, you're going to get 8.5 different answers. There are just so many different ways to do things. So at some point you got to take a stance and be like, this is the way that I see the world.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think that goes into the idea if you want to be a teacher, you got to take a stance on what to teach. Because if you don't believe it 100%, if you're not fully behind it, how do you expect anybody else to listen to you in full confidence and say, yeah, you know what, Michael's correct on this. Like this is exactly where I should go. And this is a great segue to kind of something that I think we both have in common, is that Kubernetes. Kubernetes came out and was just it just took the world by storm, right? Google created Borg and then was like, let's open source this guy, let's make it Kubernetes, and then everybody started creating their own flavor of it. So
Mhm.
I noticed that you are part of the release team, and in that sense, you are helping with the releases, you're doing commits and Git and all of that. For me, how Kubernetes came about was, I was working at IBM at the time, and IBM Cloud, in the cloud sector. And so what I noticed a lot of my clients wanted to talk about was K8s. And so I started learning about it on my own, started really understanding it and being like, yeah, this is the future. And I guess you could kind of say it's like you started drinking the Kool-Aid and saying Kubernetes is the future. And that was what I started feeling. But that was me from like the industry, from a very like kind of, I guess you could say, quote unquote, traditional space, right? Whereas for you, as a hobbyist and kind of bringing this into your own professional career, I'm curious where Kubernetes came on your radar. And, obviously the answer is it blew up. Everybody was talking about it, right? But you
Yeah.
went a step further and, you started committing, you started getting in the CNCF, trying to be a part of that community very, very intimately. So tell me
Mhm.
about how that came to be. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough to call it enjoy pain in life. So I've always worked at startups. I'm just kidding. Um, so I've always worked at startups. And I've been at startups from like 5 people to like 500 people.
Yeah.
I've just always enjoyed the atmosphere, to be honest, because again, like I like pushing myself.
Mhm.
So I always liked the idea of like having to work harder, having to push. Like I've worked at startups that, 2 nights a week I was there until, 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Several weeks straight, right? Like I enjoy that level of work. It's just me personally, right? I'm not telling people like go and burn yourself out. It's just that's me personally. That's what I like. So working at startups, you're always kind of at the forefront of like the latest and greatest.
Yeah.
Because you have to be because it's like there's nothing legacy.
Yeah.
So like you have to start net new. And I want to say it was 2016, like end of 2016 where we were having a conversation that the whole application was Java based. So a lot of applets were running on EC2 instances,
I see.
and that's how we were deploying, right? Like for customers and for demos and stuff. Like we were deploying a whole bunch of Java binaries on EC2 instances, and this is how they were running. So we started to think about like how we can make this better and more streamlined, and that's when we were thinking about containers. Now, it was really cool because it was really super early days, 2016. So like I was in the conversations of like, are we going to go Mesos? Are we going to go
Yeah.
Docker Swarm?
Yeah.
Or are we going to go to this Kubernetes thing? And remember, like in the beginning, Kubernetes was a bunch of bash scripts.
Yeah, it
It was
really
it
was.
was it was rewritten in Go, but it was very and funny enough, like I don't mean to sideline, but like even when we were going through this conversation, I actually built an orchestration platform for a brief time. I think I built it out in like 2 months or so because we didn't know like what direction we wanted to go, and
Yeah.
everything was still so new.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, I guess maybe we'll just like try out our own. So I ended up building an orchestration system in Python, because at the time I was doing a lot of Python work. And, so that like really gave me a good understanding of like how distributed systems are
Yeah.
actually have to work.
The pros
Uh,
and cons, like what would work, what wouldn't work, right? You got the ins and
exactly.
outs, and then you could actually make a very that's a very smart thing to do. Then you
Exactly.
can have a very good you can have an educated guess as to like who's gonna win this
E-
race,
e-
right?
Exactly, exactly. Yes. So it was a lot of fun. And then, Kubernetes ended up winning it, right? And it's still winning it. It's just kind of like the default orchestration platform now. So I was working with Kubernetes again, like every, the jobs that I had after that and stuff, I was working with Kubernetes. And right before I went self-employed, I asked myself two questions. Well, I knew that I needed to focus on something because at that time it was super important to focus on a particular area. And I think it still is, but I'll also say like the new generalist is the new SME now, right? Like there was a time where like people would focus on just Active Directory or just Exchange or just this technology or that technology. Now it's more of like you got to know a little bit of everything, and that's the new specialist.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was like, all right, I was like, I need to focus on one thing to build out this brand. So I said, what do I enjoy? and what content do I put out it gets like the most love.
Hmm.
So at some point I posted something on LinkedIn, and this was at the time like LinkedIn was like not up and coming, but like it wasn't like it is now. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I would say back then there weren't a lot of people like posting daily on LinkedIn, and that's why I was able to grow such a large following because I was like I don't want to say I was the first person, but I was like definitely one of the first in this space to be like posting every day to building out the brand on LinkedIn. So I did one post at some point around like when you learn Kubernetes, you're not just going to learn Kubernetes, right? Like you're going to learn networking, you're going to learn performance and resource optimization, you're going to learn storage, you're going
Yeah.
to learn programming, you're going to learn all these things. And this post ended up getting like 200,000 views, hundreds of comments and likes, and it blew up. And at that point, I knew, okay, this is a really great direction to go in, and this is technology that I'm actually really interested in.
Mhm.
And then starting from there, it was just like I was doing everything. I was speaking at conferences, I was writing books, blogs, consulting in the Kubernetes space. It was literally day to day was Kubernetes. Like that's just what I was doing. I was even like there was a period of time where like I wasn't even writing a lot of software. I was just doing a lot of Kubernetes stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think it just blew up, took the world by storm, and everybody was trying to standardize on it. And I think it came out in like 2016 or so. And I'm curious, you started, doing helping out the releases and stuff like that around
Mhm.
2023. And
Yeah.
past clients or past guests that I've had on this has they have come to me and said it's intimidating to join like a big project. So, when they look at like Istio, right? Or they look at Kubernetes, they're like, I don't know how to even like get started. I don't even know how to jump into this open source project. So they'll
Yeah.
go to like some of our open source stuff like K-Gateway or K-Agent because the community is growing fast for sure, but it's nowhere
Yeah.
near as big as like K8 or
Sure.
or Istio. So for you, 2023 was still a while for Kubernetes to be out. So the community had
Right.
already grown and it was grown by it's exploded since their beginning. So how did you kind of jump in there in 2023 and then actually start committing and helping out on the release side?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say like I noticed a really big swing in 2022 with Kubernetes.
Mhm.
And that's where a lot of the content started kicking up and everything. Now, in terms of like jumping into the Kubernetes release team, jumping into CNCF more, like learning more about it. Honestly, that the answer isn't all that fun. It was really just I went into a Slack channel and I was like, "Hey, how do you like join release teams and how do you contribute more to like different working groups and stuff like that?" And that was pretty much it for me, honestly. Like I started asking people like, "How can I contribute more?" And I pretty much like started posting the same question around how can I contribute more in like all the working groups. Because sometimes you get an answer and sometimes you don't, right? Everybody's busy. And then at that point, I literally just, filled out the application. And that was it. And then I was able to jump on in. And that's, the whole release team process. It depends on what team you're on, but it's usually, I would say 10 to 15 hours per week of contributions. And I wouldn't say it's siloed per se, but you're definitely doing a decent amount like on your own, right? Like you're not on 15 hours per week of like Zoom calls or anything like that. But there's definitely a period where it's like a little bit slower, and then like right before the release, it's like go time, right? So you're looking at the code base, you're looking at the docs, you're looking at like any errors that may be coming in, any bugs that may be coming in. Like the one that I was on, the last one for I think it was 1.31 or 1.30, one of those. Um, I don't know what the team is called anymore because I know like CNCF is like changing the working group names and they're changing the whole hierarchy. But the one that I was on, it was like a lot of triaging issues and like various alerts and monitoring and observability stuff that would come in. But it wasn't just like kicking the can down the road. It was more of like, oh, this issue came in. So now we got to like bring down the build, test the build, figure out what's going on. Like a lot of like hands-on QA style
Mhm.
stuff. And I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And I guess on like the release team side, I know you said you jump into Slack channels, you say, how do I do this? And you fill out an application. Is
Yep.
everybody that's on the release team kind of just a jack of all trades on the Kubernetes side? Like I know how to do the deployment side, I know how to do the networking for it. No, now I know the telemetry side. Or are they actually looking for like the ambassadors for K8s, looking for, oh, Michael seems to know the networking really well. We don't really have a lot of network engineers that are coming in for K8s. We would love to have him. Like, how does that process go? Or is it really just, does this person know open source? Have they actually, are they kind of a jack of all trades? We want him in. Can you give me some color around that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally based on the release team, to be honest. Like I've been on release teams that there were college students
Mm-hmm.
that have never like worked in production in any capacity. They're just like interested in this stuff. You'd be surprised like how many contributors in the CNCF space and in the open source space are just like a college student or somebody that like just got their first job or something like that. So it definitely does depend. For me, at least, yes, from like the responses that I've gotten, it's definitely been a lot of like, oh, I saw you here. Oh, I saw you there. Oh, I saw you doing this. Oh, I saw you doing that. But that's not going to be, everybody's experience. It's really a lot of it is, I would say it's like a CFP, right? So like when you put in a call for paper,
Mm-hmm.
it's not it's not based on like your technical ability. It's not based on your background. It's based on like how well did you do it writing out this CFP,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How well did you do it capturing whoever was reviewing it, right? You
Yeah.
captured them in some capacity. And I think that it's the same thing for the release team. It's like really giving a good understanding of why you want to actually do it.
That,
Yeah,
that that's good insight. I'm sure a lot of people, because a lot of people will watch this, they're trying to break into open source and they're trying to figure out, what projects do I get into? So this is all valuable insight for a lot of people.
of course.
And you're an author as well, right? So,
Yeah.
I have the book in front of me over here on my other screen, 50 Kubernetes concepts every DevOps engineer should know.
Yep.
Talk to me about actually releasing your own book. Did you
Yeah.
actually just start writing pen and paper or maybe like a quill and a feather and just started going in or was it online? Just walk me through that process. I'm very
Absolutely. Yeah. So I would say at this point, it's been one, two, three, four, 5 or 6 books that I've put out. The 50 Kubernetes concepts ones, that was actually my worst book. If
really,
I, oh
really.
yeah, yeah,
Oh
that
man,
that
I
thing.
feel bad for bringing I just,
No, no, it's all
maybe
good.
it's
Don't
this
feel
one.
don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. I'm happy that you brought it up because a lot of people ask me about it, and I tell everybody it tanked.
Mhm.
And the reason why it tanked is because I tried to put too much into it into a concise manner.
I
It's like
see.
less than 200 pages,
Mhm.
and I tried to put everything that I possibly could, literally 50 concepts,
Yeah.
and it did not do well because it was too high level, unfortunately. It was probably should have been a bigger book. But in terms of all the other ones have done great. I've written I wrote one on Go, so I used to do a lot of Go programming, still do somewhat. I wrote one of those. I wrote a platform engineering book. At the time that I wrote it, it was the only platform engineering book out. Um, and then a couple of other ones on like Azure and just overall DevOps. And that whole process is very fun for me because going back to what I was talking about in the beginning, I really enjoy going deep into topics.
Yes.
So for me, it was really, really fun. I actually, one of the books, I forget which one it was. I think it might have been the 50 Kubernetes concepts. Um, I wanted to be as focused as I possibly could for the first 3 chapters or so. So I literally wrote them on a plane.
Mhm.
Yeah. So like when you're on a plane, you don't have a lot of distractions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're writing a book, you have to be like as focused as you possibly can be. Like that has to be the only thing on your mind.
Oh yeah.
So that was a really, really fun experience. Um, yeah, that obviously won't work for everybody, but for me, that was great. And in terms of like to your point of getting going, it was really just I had an idea, I had an interest, and I was like, let me put this thing on paper.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So, I mean, that goes back to what you were saying in the beginning. As I talk to you and I learn more about you, and I'm sure our audience, we can tell you are a self-starter, right? You're gonna
right.
do things if you want to get into it. Now, you mentioned, a book about Go as well.
Mm.
I'm always curious about this with DevOps engineers is did you learn Go or start getting into it for the fact that almost like 80% of DevOps tools are written in Go, or was it a reaction to it, those tools being in Go? I need to learn it, or I just think Go is a great language. I think it's very powerful. I want to learn it. Like, which two avenues would you say made you want to get into Go?
Yeah, for me, it was because I had a task to write a Terraform provider,
Oh,
and
gotcha.
Terraform providers are written in Go.
Yes, yes, they
So
are.
that's kind of how I started down that path. And then I really enjoyed it.
Mhm,
There was, I would say, probably 6 months or so, I was doing like just Go content. So like blogs, videos, the book that I wrote, it was just all Go. I just really enjoy the language, to be honest with you. Um, I enjoy the flexibility of it. I enjoy the fact, like I always tell people that for me, it's like writing Python or it's like writing C in Python
mhm,
because it's a low level language, but it's high level enough that where it's not like writing C,
mhm.
and it's it's pretty easy to read and interpret
Yeah.
once you figure out some of the nuances of it. Yeah, and I just really I love the language. Before that, I was writing a lot of Python. Before that, I was writing a lot of PowerShell because I was in the sysadmin space.
Got it. Makes sense. And getting into this a little bit. Okay, so now you're finished up as a IT like support or sysadmin. You did all those roles. You're now starting to get into this idea of teaching. You're starting to get into this open source space more, and you're starting to write these books. And then now you're saying, I can do this consulting on my own. I've got plenty of opportunity. I have my resume is stacked. I know I can actually go in front of a client and say, listen, you can trust me to do this. How did you self-start that? Because in a way, it really was like starting your own company, starting your own
Yep.
business, your own brand. And in order to do that, you have to build yourself up, or else nobody will think you're credible. So, you built yourself up. Now you're doing this, and you did this for about 5 years before. Thankfully, you're with us now.
Yeah,
But, but for 5 years, you were in this space on your own. Talk to me about the beginnings, the struggles, and what you learned from it. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, so it all started based out of irritation. So, so
Like
what ended
most engineers, when they have a freaking
yeah,
problem, they're like, I can solve this myself. I can do it. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So going back to what I was saying before about how like there's always times where you can't put the quality in that you want to put in. That really irritated me a while ago. And now I understand, like, I definitely understand the business side more and the decisions that are made more now than I did before. Because being a consultant and being self-employed, you have to learn those things,
Mhm,
right? So back then, ironically enough, I probably started it based off of just knowledge that I didn't have,
mhm,
right? So I was really irritated by the idea of like I wanted to put good quality into things. And I still do 100%. Like I don't want to, do anything and halfway. I always want to put in quality. But back then I was really adamant about like we should be doing things a particular way to make sure that the software is of quality, is of a particular standard.
mhm,
So I said, okay, I said, you know what? I can't do it. I'm gonna go start my own thing. Right. So I started my own thing purely because I wanted to bring quality back to engineering. I felt like there was a time, especially in the corporate landscape, where things were just kind of done to be done, and
mhm,
that was it. And I still hate that idea. But for me, it was like, all right, I was like, I want to bring quality engineering back into the realm. So that's where, a lot of the content started coming out, a lot of the blogs and the books started coming out, and the consulting. And that journey was, I it, when I think about it, like I'm going through my head right now and I'm thinking about it then, I was definitely less risk adverse. Like I didn't care. Like I was like, look, I got enough money in the bank. If this thing flops, like whatever, like I'll go, get another job. Doesn't matter. And at the time, it's like I had a house. My son was 2. or
Yeah.
three.
Yeah.
So I had a lot, I had a lot riding on my irritation, uh, and luckily it
A little
worked
bit.
out.
Yes. Yeah.
Luckily it worked out. Yeah, I mean, it was really just the like I had to push myself past past my capabilities. I had to really learn it all. And in the beginning, it was like, oh, I'm a great engineer. People are going to hire me because of this.
Mhm.
And that is not how it works. People, it's table stakes at this
Mhm.
point, right? You have to
Mhm.
have a really good understanding of how to talk to people, of how to communicate, of how to work with others, and to be able to see the business side of things.
Mhm.
So funny enough, throughout the consulting, it was less about irritation and more about good quality software with a good understanding of why the company needs to cut a corner here or needs to do things differently there, et cetera. So the whole process, in the beginning, it was rough. Then it got easier. Then it got really good.
Mhm.
Then it was like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
But throughout that process, it's funny. Like I would say that if everybody has the opportunity to, at some point, they should at least try some level of self-employment or like freelancing, right? Like maybe you have a job, but like you're writing blogs on the side for vendors or you're, doing some live training, you're doing whatever. Because for me, at least, it gave me a good understanding of how the world works. And you get that lesson quick when you don't get a paycheck every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you learn very quickly. You have to learn very quickly how business works,
Yeah.
how management works, how leadership works, and get a good understanding of how the industry works as a whole. Um, so that was a big thing for me. That was really really crucial, and that was probably the biggest learning experience. So to go back to the original question, in the beginning it was rough.
Mhm.
Then it got easier. Then it got really good.
Mhm.
Because like there's like there's a lot of money in content creation.
Sure.
So then it
Sure.
got really, or there is, it's changed, right?
It's
Over,
content
a
creation
couple of
keeps
years.
changing
It
and
always
it
changes.
dwarfs it's like every month,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
100%, 100%. Yeah, like there's times where it's really good financially, and there are
Mhm.
times that it's not, and then you swap that out with more consulting,
Mhm.
which is really great for you, right?
Mhm.
Because you have the ability to focus on content, and then you have the ability to focus on consulting, and you can kind of keep going back and forth depending on what the industry needs at the time. So then it got really good, and then it started to get kind of repetitive.
Mhm.
And that's, one of the many things that led me to thinking like, okay, what's next? And luckily I was, lucky enough to land at a company like Solo.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you were doing like consulting, right? And let's say company X wants you to come in and do a certain amount of work. Are you drafting up the contract yourself and just saying, let's
Yep.
sign this? Or do you bring in a lawyer to kind of help broker this? Like, how does that process work? Yeah.
Yeah, I did everything myself.
Mhm.
So I had lawyers like that would look over contracts and stuff for me, of course, but like writing up the contracts, figuring out the finances, figuring out how much to charge for something, figuring out timelines in terms of
Sure.
like how long it's going to take. I did that all myself. I did
Yeah.
it all myself. The only thing that I don't do myself because I don't want to go to jail is my taxes. So I have a really great tax guy. Shout out to him.
Yeah.
He keeps me he keeps me out of jail every
Wherever
year.
you're at, thank you for
Phenomenal.
keeping him out of jail. We appreciate you. Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And that's the only thing that I really didn't do myself because honestly, like you need a really good CPA,
Hmm.
especially if you're freelancing, because it's
Hmm.
like there's so many things that you don't know. Like
Hmm.
for example, you can write off the square footage of your home office.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of things in there that save you a lot of money.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean it's yeah, so that was the one thing that I didn't do. When you're freelancing, you unfortunately you can't go do like TurboTax or something. I wish it was that easy. But
I was gonna say I just use like H&R Block or TurboTax. I'll just pick my poison when
yeah.
tax season comes around, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's not that easy 'cause and there are so many write-offs as well, right?
Yeah.
It's food, flights, and you gotta, that's another thing too, like you have to be your own bookkeeper.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like there's a lot to it for sure.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a good insight, right? Because I do know like a lot of people that are in the open source community, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, is like they want to be their own bosses as well. They want to start something up themselves because nobody is forcing anybody to commit to an open source project, right?
Right.
Somebody is doing that. They're volunteering their time to go and do that because they're actually passionate about it and they enjoy it. So a lot of self-starters like yourself there. Now, I also see, I'm just looking at your profile here, Tech Target. You're a board member. Can you talk to me a little bit about what Tech Target is? Just give our audience an idea of what Tech Target is and what
Yeah.
your role is there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say they're a media company. It's a good way to sum it up. You know, a lot of blogs, a lot of videos, etc. So a lot of like technical content. And that yeah, that's one board that I'm on from like a technical advisory capacity. So I've been on a couple of different boards as well in terms of like content advisory and technical advisory for content.
Mhm.
And the biggest things there are just like what content do people want to see now? What content is super helpful? And then that within that process, I'm able to guide organizations in terms of like what their focus should be for technical content.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's a really cool experience as well because again, that puts you like more on the business side of things and more on the like helpful side of things of like what piece of this actually matters because the last thing any media company wants to do and that's the cool thing about like writing content for a vendor like you of course want the content to do well but
Sure.
it's not about like you know likes, comments, impressions, etc. Like, well, that's of course a part of it, but it's
Sure.
less so versus if you are a company that survives and makes money on those metrics,
Yeah.
right? So there's
Yeah.
a big distinction there. So having the ability to help that process is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's very cool. And yeah, I'm glad people like you are doing that because I know you and I know you don't have bias and and so if you're doing editing or anything like that, you're gonna keep what's in there. And you always hope when somebody's on an editorial board that they don't have bias and that they are
Right.
educated and then they're able to do things right. So
Yeah.
that's very, very cool.
Yeah,
So
it's definitely a balancing act for sure. Like I can definitely say as I'm getting older, I am maturing in the sense of being opinionated because like there was definitely a time throughout my career where I was like, no, this is the way it's done. This is the only way, and please stop bringing up other stuff.
yeah,
So like that's definitely helped me throughout certain portions of my career. But to your point, like when you're advising organizations based on what they need to be thinking about,
yeah,
it can't be black and white like that.
no.
You know, there's so yeah, there's definitely a growth and a level of maturity that's necessary to be able to do it. Luckily, you know, I'm working on it, so that's good.
You and me both, brother. Don't worry. I get it. I understand. It's very easy to let your own ego go wild when you feel like you have opinions like that are strong. It's like, yeah, I've been doing this for a while. Like, yeah, people should listen.
Exactly.
But there's
Yep.
always somebody that's been doing it longer than you. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
And there's honestly in tech, like the one thing that you really do learn, especially like if you're working for a vendor or if you're self-employed, the one thing that you learn is that there's really almost no right or wrong answer.
yeah.
You know, it's really like the technology rarely solves the problem.
Hmm.
Really, what it is a lot about like what does this organization actually need? And
Exactly.
then the tech comes in and it solves the problem, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's really more about like what's actually necessary. And the answer to that question is usually there's usually several answers to that question.
Mhm.
Although the one thing that I won't that I'll die on a hill on is that nobody should be eating salad for enjoyment. I think that, you know, people that go and say they're eating a salad because they like it, I think that they're lying, and I won't ever agree to that. But other than that, I'm pretty open and lenient to various ideas at this point in my life.
But okay, but like sometimes like the dressing can help, but like I agree like if I'm going out and like and then I want like fried chicken or salad and I'm not gonna tell you that the enjoyment level
Exactly.
is the exact same between the two. There's no way I'm gonna say that. That's It's just blasphemous to
Exactly.
me.
Exactly. That and fruit and cake. Look, pick a side.
Yeah.
Either you want a dessert and a treat, or
Yeah.
you want to be healthy.
Yeah.
Don't try to mix the two worlds. It's incredibly unnecessary, in my opinion.
Honestly, commit to I'm having a bad day
Commit.
today. I'm gonna cheat and I'm just gonna eat this, or I'm gonna be healthy. Don't try to play both sides.
That's
That's
it.
never how it works. You're
No,
gonna get just caught in the middle, and nobody's gonna like that. Yeah.
exactly. You got to commit. Pick a side.
Yes, man. So, kind of wrapping up to our last few questions, and it's, you're here now. You're my coworker, my colleague, a friend, and you joined Solo. Talk to me a little bit about that, and no pressure. All of the board is watching and our C-suite as to why you joined. They're gonna
Exactly.
definitely
Exactly.
tune into this one. So why Solo? You were doing great as a freelance consultant. You have a ton
Yeah.
of experience. You didn't need to join a company, but you wanted to. So why us? Why
Right.
Solo? Yeah.
So I was at a point where, I don't believe in like 5-year plans or 10-year plans.
Hmm.
I think after, 6 months, they usually fall down on their face.
Hmm.
Things change, right? Like you should have a direction and an idea of where you want to go, but you can never say like, this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 5 years, especially in tech. It just doesn't work that way. But I was really at the point where I was saying to myself, like, you ever feel like you're doing a lot, but you're not doing anything?
Yes.
It,
Yes.
it was really starting to feel that way for me. But like financially and like the work that I was doing, it was all good, but it was just like, what am I doing?
Hmm.
You know? And this thing and it, shout out to my friend Eric Wright, one of my best friends. He's heard me once a week for maybe years saying like, what am I doing? Like, what is my purpose? What should I be focusing on? What should I really be diving into?
Yeah.
And this question just this question kept coming up, where it was like I was losing sleep. Like it was just a constant thing, a constant level of anxiety. Um, and I was like, what's kind of going to be next for me? And I really had to think about like, what do I enjoy doing the most?
Yeah.
And what do I see? Where do I see myself going? And I was talking to my good friend Sebastian Maliak, and we were talking, and he was like, "Have you ever thought about the world of SE, right? Whether you call it solutions engineering or sales engineering or field engineer or whatever." And he was like, because with your consulting background and with your content background and like your interest in this space and all this stuff, he was like, have you ever thought about this as a career choice? And I was like, well, and then I started to think, and it brought me to about 15 years ago or so at this point, like in the beginning of my career. I I uh I was working in IT, and we were bringing in new network equipment, so like routers, switches, firewalls, wireless access points. And I want to say this was before Cisco acquired Meraki.
Got it. Got
But
it.
we really liked Meraki. And we primarily liked Meraki because I think maybe it was right when they acquired them or when they were acquiring them. But we really liked the solution because of course because the solution, right? We were looking at like Barracuda, we were looking at Cisco, we were looking at Fortinet, we were looking at a bunch of different solutions. But what really sold us on the idea of how cool this technology was because of and I wish I could remember the gentleman's name at this point, but he was an SE, all right?
Yeah.
And this dude was super into it. He was like a double CCIE, which is like the highest level Cisco cert you can get. It's incredibly difficult certification to
Hmm.
get. The majority of people fail it. I think it's like 4 out of 5 people or something still. Like it's a very difficult cert to get. And he had two of them. And he was like walking us around his house, like, oh yeah, I have like my access point here. Like this is like my whole home lab and everything.
Yeah.
Um, and we were sold on the idea really because this dude was really good.
Yeah.
at the tech. Like he
Yeah.
didn't have to sell anything. And I also always had a belief that again, whether you call it a solutions engineer, sales engineer, field engineer, like the last thing you should be doing in that role is selling,
Hmm.
right? In the traditional sense.
Hmm.
You should really be the technology advisor,
Yeah.
right? The trusted advisor.
It goes back to
Um,
what you were saying earlier on like
you know,
if you're going and you're selling the technology, you're doing something wrong. It's
doing it
like,
wrong.
does that person
Yep.
have a problem? And okay, let me diagnose and understand that problem. And then,
Yep.
okay, we can talk about the technology if I can actually solve it. That is what
Thousand
the
percent.
job is. So, yeah.
1000%.
Sorry to
Yep.
interrupt you. Please continue.
No. You're 100% right.
Mhm.
So I was just kind of like all this stuff was formulating in my head, right? And then Sebastian was like, you should talk to Solo. They're looking for somebody in the New York and New Jersey area. And I remember Solo because a couple years back, maybe 3 years back at this point, I was a delegate on Cloud Field Day, which, for everybody that's not familiar, Tech Field Day, Cloud Field Day, there's also like AI Field Day and App Dev Field Day and all these. Essentially, it's just a bunch of people sitting at a table, and a bunch of vendors come in, and we're hearing vendor presentations, and then we're helping the vendors essentially with their direction, right?
Yeah.
Their technical vision. Um, and Solo was one of the presenters. In fact, I could be wrong here. I got to ask somebody. I got to ask Christian or somebody because Christian was there. That's when I met Christian, Christian Posta. And I was
Yeah.
like, I think it was at the Solo office
There
in
was one in Boston. It
Boston.
was in Boston.
It was in Boston.
We did
Yeah.
have an office. It superseded my time here too, man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never saw, but it was. So it could have been the
Yeah.
office then. Yeah.
I'm fairly certain it was at the Solo. Again, I could totally be wrong here. I got to ask somebody, but I think that's where it was. All the presentations were there. It was really great of Solo to allow us to sit there all day.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I was like, I'll have a conversation. And for me, I always go into these conversations where I'm like, I'm open to the idea,
Mhm.
right? I'm always open, like to the idea of full time or whatever. I'm also open to the idea of, and this has happened a few times where I've talked to vendors, and I'm like, hey, look, I don't think this is going to work out from a full-time perspective, but maybe we could do some consulting together, right? And then that turns into a new client. And I've had that happen a ton as well, where they're
Yeah.
like, where it doesn't align full-time, but it's like, hey, like we could do something from a consulting standpoint. And so I'm like, I'm always open to the conversation because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to run into.
For sure.
That's why, like, I'll always tell people this, regardless of where you work, like, never submit yourself to like just thinking how they think
Mhm.
and just doing the things that they're doing, right? Like, keep your sense of self
Yeah.
and your opinion. It's very important because you never know who you're going to run into later on. And I promise you, people will not remember you for how good you are at engineering. They're going to remember you for who you are. It's very
Agreed.
important.
I
Very important.
wholeheartedly agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I started to have these conversations. Um, and before I knew it, I'm in the interview process and I'm like, I actually like these people. And I like the idea and I like the technology. Like I've been in the Kubernetes space for so long. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, and this was another big thing that I was thinking about too, because as I was consulting, I was doing a lot of different things. I was doing a lot of Python development. I was doing a lot of Go development, a little bit of Rust development, and I was also still in the cloud native space as well. But I was kind of scattered, right?
Mhm.
And I also thought back to years ago when I was like, the thing that made me so interested in being self-employed in content itself is because I really honed in on one particular area. And
Mhm.
I missed that feeling of honing in on this particular area.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with solo, I knew that I was able to do that again.
Yeah.
So honestly, it was just so many things were
Culmination. A
going,
culmination.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was like there was not one bad thing throughout the process of figuring out if this was right for me, from like life stuff to like what I really wanted to focus on to the people at Solo to the technology. It was like everything was just going in the right direction. And I was like, yeah, like let's do it. And luckily I was grateful enough for Solo to choose me as an SE because like I know that it's not, it's not like there aren't plenty of people out there that can do the job very, very well. So it was really awesome to, have the ability to get chosen for the position.
Absolutely. And something to highlight from your story, which is awesome. I love that. That was very layered, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Was I think it highlights the importance of having good friends in your life too, people you can actually go and talk to. Because
Yeah.
out the outside, if you're a surface level person in Michael Levan's life, oh man, he's doing everything. You know, he's writing books. He's got everything. He has purpose in life. He's like he's not worried. He's done so much. And then internally, you're going and talking to your friends and saying, I want something else out of this. I need something else. And you luckily had a great friend recommended you, and now you're here. And honestly, we couldn't be happier, man.
I
We're
appreciate it.
everybody here at Solo is, but
And it's really ironic too, because all those feelings of purpose, what should I be doing? What should I be focusing on? Where am I going to be in the next 5, 10, 15 years, whatever. Um, all that thoughts, those thoughts have now vanished.
yeah,
I have not thought about it since, starting. And that's a really cool feeling as well. Because a lot of people like, well, pretty much everybody in my life has said to me, oh, you went back to full time to working for somebody else. You're not self-employed. Like people are kind of confused by this.
sure.
Um, and what people don't understand is, like you just said, it's a layered thing, right? It's not just like I'm self-employed and I've made it to the top now. No, life is not that black and white.
No,
So
it never is.
yeah, yeah,
So final kind of question or just ask I have, we're gonna be co-hosts now. You're
yeah.
gonna be helping me out on the pod, I'll be helping you out, you know. So I feel like the last thing I want is just to roll out the carpet for you, man. What do you want out of this podcast? What kind of guests do you want to hear? You know, how do you want this to go? You know, just let the audience know.
Absolutely.
I'll be quiet and you say what you want to say. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the one really cool thing, number one, you asked me to come and assist you in co-hosting this, and thank you so much for that. I appreciate you thinking of me because I know that there's a ton of other people, so I really appreciate you asking me. And in terms of like the direction of the podcast, luckily, we both line up with exactly what we want, right? Like we want good, solid engineering discussions. We don't want any sales BS. We
Mm-mm.
don't want any pushing of anything, right? Like we really want it to be a podcast that's going to be helpful for people to tune in and listen to. Whether you're in the car, driving to work or driving home from work and you want some entertainment, whether you want to learn something new, whether you want a little bit of background noise while you're working, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be, we really want it to just be of the utmost quality for people from an engineering and a technical standpoint. So we align wholeheartedly with every direction of like where we would hope the podcast would go. So that's always great to hear. You know what I mean? It's always great to be in alignment. That's for sure, especially for stuff like this, right? Because things like this, podcasts and partnering up and teamwork and stuff, it can fall apart pretty quickly if people aren't aligned, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
If I was
yeah,
just coming in here and I was like, hey, let's push all the products, man. And you're like,
exactly.
I thought this was an open source podcast.
Exactly.
It's like, come on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm super excited for that. You know what I mean? And this is stuff that we spoke about as well, where it's like, we're of course going to talk about a lot of like cloud native networking and service mesh and how that all works. But we also want to go in the direction of like, well, let's go pick an open source project that we like, that might not have anything to do with any of this
Mhm.
and just look at the contributors or look at the person that's maintaining it and be like, hey, you want to come on and talk about
Oh,
what you're building out.
yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun for sure.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
Michael, man, thank you so much for joining me on this. I know you said thank you to me, but I honestly am so thrilled to have you as a co-host. We're gonna have a lot of fun moving forward. Yeah, so to our audience, this concludes episode 5. We will try to, release an episode every 2 weeks or so. Sometimes Michael might be taking over, I might be taking over, depending on schedules. But for the most part, it should be both of us on this together, interviewing at least one or many guests, however it may be. But yeah, I'm your now I won't say host, co-host, and interesting. Thank you all for joining us. Hopefully you learned something. And I will put in the description on YouTube some links to some of Michael's material, his Git, so you guys can just check out some of the work he's done. He's done some pretty incredible stuff. And yeah, thank you all for listening.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.